Thank you guys for coming today. I'm going to talk about PBIS effect on kindergarten, and because I know not everybody's a kindergarten teacher in the room, I can elaborate more on PBIS as a whole in our school here at Fairlawn. What I'm going to talk about today is the PBIS reward system that we have started here at Fairlawn. We started the last month or so of school, and I want to make sure that it's become effective for our building. What it is, it's a positive behavior system for students to replace all of our existing behaviors. So like our clip charts, our glass dojos, our think sheets that we have to go around the building for our behavior. The three-tier system is part of PBIS. I'll talk more about that in a minute, but the three-tier system is the behaviors you see in the classroom that have students react from just your dailies to your explosive behaviors. I want to analyze the effect that PBIS has at Fairlawn, whether it's positive, negative, or if there's somewhere a happy medium between the two. And then I want to just improve our overall building behavior. With the PBIS system, I think it's a great support system, so I want to make sure that it's something that is desirable for our students here at Fairlawn. The purpose why I did this study is to increase our student behavior, to increase the engagement in the classroom, and review the data for those tier students to make sure our behavior and our academics can both increase positively, and to just determine the full impact that PBIS has here at Fairlawn. So to begin, I had to do a literature review. And so what I found about kindergarten behavior was that the relationship between the parent and the student is, of course, important to no end. I found that if parents work with their kids and not just put an iPad or a movie on, their behavior at school increases almost tenfold because they're more ready to come to school, especially at the kindergarten age, than they are if they just had an iPad with them from the get-go. Relationships are important. They form not only with the parents but with the teachers as well. And that's the two most important features in kindergarten, is the quality of student-teacher relationships and to create that emotionally supportive environment for those students, so they have that good foundation at the very beginning to go all the way from us in kindergarten all the way through high school. And then we need to foster relationships with those students so they can develop on a positive basis. It sets the tone for the year. If we start out positive, the more positive we are, the tone is positive in the classroom, and the kids will be more desirable to work harder to reach the goals that we as teachers set for them, or they themselves set for them. I also found that the support in early education reduces aggression as the child becomes older because of those relationships we form, because they learn those coping skills necessary to move on to the next grades. It helps with not only social and academic skills. The more they feel welcomed, the more they're going to perform for you. And if you are emotionally and supportive, it can enhance school adjustment as early as kindergarten, as long as you model the clear and positive behaviors and expectations that you have for your students. That's such like positive specific praise, verbal praise, like, oh, great job, thank you for coming to the carpet to sit down crisscross, I can tell you're ready to learn. Thank you for keeping your bubble in while you walk down the hallway. All of those positive specific praises will help intensify their desire to work for you and increase those positive behaviors in schools. Then I researched PBIS, and it's an intervention with a three-tier system. RTI is part of the three-tier system that we talk all day long about, and having the three-tier system in place helps us squash those red zone kids. And red zone kids are the kids that have the explosive behaviors that we see sometimes on a day-to-day basis. And that's more than just calling out, or that's more than just, hey, you're stupid, to your neighbor. It's an explosive throwing a chair across the room, or saying I'm leaving and walking out of the building. Those are the behaviors that we're trying to decrease and increase the positive ones. The primary feature is to identify the behavior, teach the correct coping skill, and use problem solving and support systems for the kids. We need to teach and reteach those behaviors, and so they do learn to cope. We implemented this year the red mat system, where the kid will start on the red mat. When they're really angry, when they're working through their problem, they move to the yellow mat, and when they're ready to talk to you, they move to the blue mat, so that we see as a visual that they're ready to talk to us and we're ready to talk to them. And that way we can work through their problem using those coping skills. There are 2,100 schools in the nation right now that have started or have been doing PBIS. And if school behavior improves, then academics go up as well. They're correlated. And as long as we continue to have those behaviors go up, we're going to increase in our academics consistently. The framework is making sure that we're positive, specific praise. We need to make sure that we teach and reteach expectations, positive behaviors all the time. And after we reteach, things like the beginning of year expectations, routines, then that's when we can focus more on specific praise, so it just becomes routine for them. And not only for them, but for us too, because it may not be in our first nature to go, thank you so much for walking in the hallway with your bubble and tail. We could just say, oh, thanks for doing that. And because we have that second nature in us, now that we've had that repetition, that's that framework that we've set for us, that's going to set for them also. So it will help them keep that in mind as they continue to grow, not just through kindergarten, but through all the way through school. 5 to 15% of students will need intervention with PBIS because they're not used to the system. It's the framework that we have to teach ourselves before we can teach them. And those are the tier 2 and tier 3 kids, and I'll talk about them in just a second. 1 to 7 students will need more one-on-one than the whole student population. And after seeing the success that we've had this year, 85 to 95% success rate makes sense overall, because we've just seen that improvement just from this past year of using the red mats, using the positive specific praise, and having those routines in place for our kids. We need to focus on problem behaviors that we want to solve for these 1 to 7%. So we're not just focusing on don't do that, the no's, the don't do that, no running, you can't do this, you can't do that. We need to work it so they want to do it and work it in student language. Yes, I want to do this. Yes, that's the right decision. I need to make this for myself. Implementing behavior and support is what we need to do as teachers to help that 1 to 7% with the explosive behaviors. Urban schools have the most difficulty, and because we are a title school, we're very similar to an urban school, like in Chicago, that have those explosive behaviors because of our kids that have single parent families, or multiple families living in one home, or even just the poverty level of the surrounding area. That's the type of kids that we're dealing with, and so we need to be properly trained in this 3-tier system to help our students on that individual level. The school-led positive specific expectations are similar to what Todd has taught us this year. And what has been great is that he helps us with his tidbits with Todd emails over the week, which have those examples of, hey, you can do this with your kids, or you can do that with your kids, to help us gain that trust with those kids, to help them realize that we're here to help them. We're not here just to be their teachers. We're here to help them make the right choices for not only for their school, but for their outside school life as well. PBIS is an alternative to suspensions. What we could do is, instead of saying, oh, sorry, you've done the wrong behavior, I'm going to send you home for suspension, we can do things like being sent to another classroom to finish their work, indoor recess where they have to work on their homework instead of having recess, eating lunch away from their peers so they can complete their tasks, or just different consequences that aren't necessarily negative to say, you can't come to school because we don't want you here because you can't perform the right behavior. It's more of a, I know you can do this, but let's remove you from the behavior first and then try again later. And then rewards. We need to have rewards. And we have those in place here at school. Some rewards that I know that I have in kindergarten is seeing another teacher. Our kindergarten love to go see first grade. They love to go see second grade. They like to get on an iPad for a reward. They like to have the opportunity to help in administration, so like Ms. Mortis, Ms. Ford. They also like to go, especially now that we've implemented it, the PBIS store. Having the opportunity to earn their points and to go to the store has just been skyrocketed for their behavior because they know that they've earned something special. And so I have noticed that increase in behavior. What it means for teachers to be prepared, or teacher perceptions, is that at the beginning, over 600,000 youth were in alternative school settings. That's a lot of kids. I know we struggle with kid behavior, but if we focus on that positive specific praise, then we can avoid some of those higher numbers. If we turn it to make sure that it's more kid-friendly to more where it's student-focused, then they're going to desire to have those good behaviors. So if we continue that specific praise, we'll be able to make this number drop. The typical behavior management system doesn't always work for kids, and the suggestions that were made for the schools that didn't have PBIS were things like rewards, alternatives to suspensions. We can, instead of, sorry, I lost my train of thought, pregnancy brain kicking. Just keep going. Teachers have noticed that we tend to be reactive rather than thinking before we react. And we need to teach ourselves to take a minute, to take a step back, to think about what has just happened so we can react correctly. Because if we explode, 9 times out of 10 that kid's going to explode as well. And that's the last thing we want, because then that positive specific praise that we have tried so hard and that trust that we have tried so hard to gain is now null and void because we have exploded on that child that may have exploded as well. And we need to make a behavior plan with the kid. You know, why did you do this? What was the problem? How can we fix this together? How can you fix this? What are some things that we can do together? We see ourselves as the strongest influence in their lives because we're the most important things in their lives. We're the most consistent things, at least for 180 days, if not more. Because, you know, you see those kids in Walmart, you know, you see them walking in the mall, you see them in Target, we see them everywhere we go, and we're that positive influence all the time. So, oh, I missed one, sorry. It is important that teachers need to take into account the maturity of the student that they're working with. Because yes, I'm working with a 5-year-old, but it's not an excuse to throw a chair across the room. We need to make sure that they have those coping strategies, that's what we teach them to do, so they can react correctly to a behavior. All right, here are my references for my literature review. And now what I'm going to go talk about is my research question. This was the question that I thought all the way through my project about why PBIS, and especially in a school like Fairlawn, was so important to me. I said the effect of PBIS has, what does the effect of PBIS have on the behavior for kindergarten students? And the only reason I chose kindergarten is because that's the grade I teach. But it does relate not only just to kindergarten, it does relate K through 5, at least for this aspect. Fairlawn's a Title I school. Students come from trying backgrounds such as single-parent homes, grandparent homes, they live with their grandparents, they have multiple family homes, and then the poverty rate is so high around the school. The behavior is a problem. We see kids that tend to explode every day, throw a chair across the room, have some not so nice language in the classroom, and we are trying to work on that so our academics can go up as well. I'm wanting the students to succeed not just in school, but in their day-to-day life. That's the goal, as every teacher has that same goal. And the adaptation of PBIS in the building, starting at the kindergarten level. Because kindergarten is where we lay that basic foundation, so that's where I was going to start. We have 21 kindergarten students in my classroom, ages 5 to 6, 14 girls, 6 boys, 2 speech, 2 RTI, 6 reading above grade level or on, and 3 reading below that need more intervention than just day-to-day on-target reading groups. The methodology that I use, these were the things that I used to gather my data. I use the PBIS website, Class Dojo, my daily clip chart, the PBIS school team that we have, I use that as well. Our behavior plan that was written, and my DIBELS and M-Class data to show how the behavior correlated with my academics. This is my PBIS reward system. This is what it looks like when you pull it up on your phone. The students get a QR code, and they wear it around their necks, and any teacher can give them a point if they're doing the right thing. We've made an unlimited amount of points that they can earn, but the more points they earn means their behavior is better, which means they get to spend more money in their store when they get to go once a month. We, as a team, have come together, well, I say team, I mean school, have come together to create the point system, where 1 point may be walking down the hallway correctly, and 10 points is an achievement that they've made in their academics or their report cards or some major thing that they have accomplished. Class Dojo is a way to communicate with my parents about the students' behavior. This kept data prior to adopting PBIS, and the students work towards classroom goals for the week. So after the week, if the student has earned their clips up all week long, then they've earned their Fun Friday every week. So this is for the students that can't wait to go to the store once a month. This is more of a, I need some extra help, Miss Hambidge, because I can't handle a whole month of not earning a reward. This is what my Class Dojo looks like, more like on a Tuesday. Students earn points through their behavior, through answering good questions, through reacting positively to each other. If somebody falls down or somebody drops something and somebody else helps them pick it up, then I give them a point because their behavior was something desired that they did on their own. The clip chart was a way to keep track of students on a daily basis. It gave them immediate results. I would say, oh, great job, Bobby, go raise your clip, you did a fantastic job, and that way he would get that immediate feedback of, hey, I can do that too, that was great, I did it, good for me, I get to move my clip up. And if the students got to move their clip all the way up, they earned something out of my treasure box, or they earned something, just a reward at the end of the day. For those that couldn't even last a week, they were able to last the whole day and earn something special, whether that be, a peppermint or something little out of my treasure box. They were still able to earn it. Every student at the end of the day, or at the beginning of the day, it started on Ready to Learn, and they could move up, they could also move back, but I always gave them the opportunity to move up again. I made sure that if they did move back, I watched that student double to make sure that they could have that opportunity to move up, because I didn't want them to think, oh, I moved back one, I'm not doing good today, because that's not how I ran my classroom. I wanted to make sure that they always felt like they were succeeding. The PBIS behavior team at the school created several matrices. We created a SOAR matrix, a consequence matrix, a classroom behavior matrix, and an intervention matrix. And it also put together the point system for the PBIS points as well as part of the team, or the school did. This is the SOAR board. The SOAR board led student discussion. It was student-led in the rooms, and the teachers and the students filled out what it meant to be soaring in our classroom. And SOAR was our way that we talked about it in the room. We were safe, had our outstanding effort, we were always respectful, and we are responsible. So the students and I would get together every grading period and talk about what it means to be safe, what it means to have outstanding effort, what it means to be respectful, and what it means to be responsible. And they would give me examples, and I would write them, and then I'd post them in the room. And sometimes they would say, oh, Ms. Hambidge, so-and-so's not being safe because they're running. And so yes, we would have that conversation. Good job. I'm really glad you're being safe. Thank you so much. We'd also review this every morning too to make sure that they remembered what we had talked about. So it wasn't just for me, it was for them too. This is a think sheet. I know that the think sheet was used mostly in the upper grades because our kids in kindergarten can't write. They can't respond. They can do it orally, but we mostly talk this out with them. This was like the Give 'em 5, which is where, what happened? Why do you think that happened? What can we do to change this? And we gave them positive, I love how you came to school today. Thank you so much for coming to school. But how can we change this behavior to make you have a great day? Because that's the whole purpose of you being here, having a good day and learning. So that's what the think sheet was used for. This is the point system for our PBIS. And just some quick things. 1 point was like our dress code. We were soaring, and we're prepared for reading and writing groups. 2 points is having a great answer, working in a group, using our manners. 3 to 4 points is a positive attitude, waiting patiently, because it's hard to be patient when you're 5 and have to wait in line. I know that's very hard. 5 and 6 points is helping someone who dropped something and being genuine about it. Instead of me saying, oh, go help so-and-so pick up, the student just got up and helped them pick up without me asking. I think that's very important because it teaches good manners, which is also part of point system. 7, 8 points is a sincere apology. If you push somebody down, you didn't mean to, you help them up, you go, oh man, I am so sorry for pushing you down. I did not mean to do that. That's a sincere apology. I didn't have to tell you, go apologize to him because you pushed him down. That's huge because that means they're thinking on their own. They're remembering that we need to be kind on a daily basis. And then 9 to 10 points is reaching an academic goal. So that was our PBIS point system. Now, I know I've mentioned 3-tier behavior, so I'm going to talk about Tier 1 first. The Tier 1 is the non-problem students. These are the kids that if you teach your expectations at the beginning of the year, your routines, a simple warning or a proximity to them will get them to focus on the right behavior. And these behaviors are getting out of their seat without being asked, or calling out, their uniform, walking in line. They're not really disruptive behaviors in the classroom. Then we get to Tier 2. Tier 2 is the next level of students. Those are the students that need a bit more warning, but don't necessarily affect the learning environment. They don't chuck a chair across the room. They may get upset and throw things, but not intentionally trying to hurt someone. Or they don't follow directions, or they're poking their neighbor. So what those kids might need is your proximity, your reteaching of expectations, the reminding them of the appropriate behavior, or giving them the 5 approach, which is similar to the think sheet. And then finally is the Tier 3 students. And the Tier 3 students are the kids that are fighting, the kids that are calling their teachers unkind things, the teachers that are leaving the room or the building, the teachers that the teachers are doing their jobs. the students that are intentionally trying to hurt someone. Those are your Tier 3 kids. Those are the ones that need more one-on-one intervention, and they need to be more student-focused. And some of the ways that we can help are very similar to Tier 2, the Give Them 5, the proximity, the reminding, the reteaching. But you may have to contact your principal, the behavior specialist, or the parent, just depending on what's going on, because you want to make sure that you are safe, they are safe, and the rest of your class is safe. And that's just the matrix that the PBIS team created. Finally, I also have the DIBELS and M-Class data that I reviewed at the end of the year after having PBIS in my classroom for a year. The students piloted the reward system for PBIS the last month or so, and that also made me realize that that's when I did my end of year testing, and it increased my students' behavior as well because they were working towards those points that they can earn. It seemed to cause less disruption in the classroom to allow me to teach more and to get those better results from my kids, because here is my data. This is the beginning of the year. I had 3 red children, which means they were below, and 7 kids that were above or on level at the very beginning of the year. And as you can see at the end of the year, I had no red, and then all but 2 were green. So I have, between that positive specific praise, the PBIS reward system, I really think that has allowed for my students to learn to focus in and earn their rewards as well as their academic goals. Woohoo! And this is my M-Class data. This is just end of year. I only have 2 reds at the end of the year. At the beginning of the year, I had much more than that. But it shows that my students are still trying both in reading and in math. So I'm very proud of this data, and I do correlate it along with all that positive behavior system that I have in the classroom. So overall, I have the PBIS website, Dojo, daily clip chart, and the matrices that our PBIS team has created, as well as the school-wide behavior plan and my DIBELS in class that has shown that we have behavior systems in place for extended period and immediate feedback for these students, as well as a system to where if something does go wrong, then with their behavior, then we are able to sit down and work it out to where they can use their coping strategies to focus on their behaviors. Okay, I'm sorry guys, I know this is, you guys are troopers. This is my pie chart that I created for my PBIS. 62% of students were successful with PBIS. They earned either 30 points, or they earned 30 to 40 points. Most of my students earned around, you could earn as many as 50 for that last month, because I tried to make sure that they were earning points more frequently because it was a new system at the very end of the school year. We only had this for a month. So 62% of my students earned between 30 and 40 points. They were very successful with PBIS, and 29% earned higher than 40 points. And the students, this 9% that did not earn more than 30 points, I have that belief that the reason they did not earn those points was because they weren't here at school, their attendance was poor, or their behavior had to be redirected more than one time, and or the student didn't reach their academic goals where they earned 10 points at one time. Students seem to work hard as they earned their points, because they saw the more points they earned, the more things they got in the store, or better the behavior, the more points they could earn. After looking at Class Dojo, it's the same data. I had 62% be extremely successful with Class Dojo. So the correlation between Class Dojo and PBIS are very similar. It allowed me to have great student success because they were working towards something that they wanted. And the reason I see that 9% did not meet their weekly goals was because the student was either absent and they couldn't earn their points because they were absent, or they needed to correct their behavior in the classroom. Other K rooms and first grade rooms use Class Dojo as well. And this is my parent communication with Class Dojo. I only had 43% of my parents on Class Dojo. But I know that first grade and kindergarten, the other kindergarten teachers had more success of their parents being connected with Class Dojo. So I think that could be part of the reason why that 9% may have not earned as many points, because their parents weren't connected. They didn't know how many points their students were earning. They weren't very sure what was going on or what Class Dojo was. And I made that, I kind of decided that the reason my parents didn't connect with Class Dojo was because they didn't have access to the internet on their phone on a consistent basis, or they just never logged into the application. I had many opportunities to send home that information, and I did, but I can't do it for the parent. The parent has to log in themselves. So that could be part of the reason why. Parent communication is very important. Kindergarten doesn't have an agenda book. We use all of our communication through Class Dojo. So parent communication is important to me and several of my parents, but I was disappointed in the 52% that did not sign up for Class Dojo. Okay. 43% of my students for the clip chart on this particular day stayed on Ready to Learn, but that doesn't mean that they were always on Ready to Learn, just that when I took the picture, that's where they were that day. Students, like I said before, they can move themselves forward, they can move themselves back. It's very student-oriented, so they have that responsibility. The reason they may have not met their daily goal, because all of my kids, their goal was to be at Best in Show, which my room is very dog-themed. So I have Ready to Learn, Tail Wagging Good, Hot Dog, and then Best in Show. That was the way it progressed up. And everybody's goal was to be Best in Show, but sometimes it just didn't happen. The reason students may have not met that goal on a daily basis was because the student attendance, again, was poor, or the student decision-making. They weren't able to turn that day around to where they could bump their dog up again. Positive behavior increased for students who needed immediate results. That's why I had the clip chart in my room. Dojo was great, PBIS was great, but some of my kids needed immediate feedback, and this was a way to help them do that. So that's why I used it on the day-to-day basis. The behavior plan that we have, there are 9 primary teachers, 9 intermediate teachers, 5 administrators, and 6 staff. And the 6 staff I correlated to special education, art, PE, tech, and cafeteria, because those are the people that saw our kids on the most consistent basis. So that's why the bars look askew, because there's not as many admin as there are intermediate and primary. The green is for the tier interventions. That means that we used the intervention, we made sure that we looked at all the tiers and retaught anything that we needed to reteach. The PBIS point system we used. Intermediate didn't use it like K and 1 did. They didn't pilot it the last month of school, so that's why their bar is slightly lower. The think sheet, intermediate's higher than primary because primary used it orally when intermediate could write and actually work it out, paper and pencil, versus just one-on-one with your teacher. And then everybody used the source system at school. The reason the PBIS system points aren't as consistent was because it was a new system and only K1 and 3 piloted it the last month of school. The analysis for M-Class and DIBELS was that at the end of the year, there was 98% of my children were on grade level, and only 2% needed intervention, just some intervention. When at the beginning of the year, or for M-Class, I needed 2 with intense intervention and 12 that needed absolutely no intervention because they were on or above grade level. Why some students did not meet their goals, once again, attendance could have been poor, or students were struggling with the tasks. They weren't on grade level, they struggled with basic number sense or letter and number recognition, or like phonemic sound fluency, things that we tested in M-Class, Dibbles and TRC, they struggled with those when I tested them. Students have shown growth over the year, and I admit that to be with all the positive things that I have going on in my classroom, as well as the things that go on in the school building as a whole, the PBIS, the SOAR, the matrices that we have. And the students are understanding the task being asked, because at the beginning of the year they may not have understood the task, but now that they've seen the test more than once, they do, so they're better at taking that test. Okay, pause. You guys have done great. I'm so sorry it's taken so long. This is the next step. So after seeing all this data with M-Class and Dojo and the clip chart and the PBIS system, what do you think our next steps could be for our school as a whole with this PBIS and behavior program? I mean, do you guys have any ideas or opinions that we could have for our next steps? Because I know right now it's a good start, but we need to take that next step to make our school go from the starting point to getting better. Yes.
I think there needs to be something with the PBIS system with parent communication, because I know it doesn't have the parent communication like Dojo, so I think as a school we need to come up with a system where we can get all of our parents on board, whether it doesn't have to be using the internet. It needs to be some other form of communication that they all have access to.
I agree with that completely. I think parent communication helps with behavior at home and helps with behavior here at school, because that means we're consistent across the board, and that's why I still have my Dojo. It's because of that parent communication. So I really hope PBIS gets the hint and gets a parent communication log in place as well. And
like within a reward system piece, yeah. I think as a whole, our climate and culture needs to change a little bit, and that's something I'm looking at in my master's, is how to make the parents not just feel like their voices, not feel like they can just talk, but that their voices are actually heard. And so that we don't have a lot of the negative perceptions about our school, that we are all on the same team with them. That communication piece, like, doesn't always need to be negative.
right.
But finding that time to find those positives in it as well could be key. But I think adding in the climate and culture of feeling welcomed into the building.
I agree with that too. I think the climate and culture can change as well, and I really think that if maybe we had like more of a Title I night where we invited the parents to come and show them, yeah, this is what we do with your babies all day long, then they can see we can be more of a team than, okay, I'm a teacher here at school and I'm a parent here at home, but there's this path between the two of us that we can't seem to cross over. So I think that we need to work on that as well. But with this PBIS system and the positive specific feedback, I think that's where we can start.
Right.
And then carry it over to the communication, and then hopefully get more parents in the door to come volunteer and to come help their babies when we have fun nights like the plays and the talent night and the title nights and the tailgate night. I mean, I'm just trying to get more parents in the door to show them that, yes, we are here for your kids for more than just we're their teachers. You know, we're helping them become little adults, because now we have to grow up a lot quicker than when we had to back when we were all kids. So
the leadership team, when we gave feedback on the pilot we did for the reward system, one of our biggest issues was the lack of communication, and they brought it up to the people that created the system, those two that came in, and they said that's something they're working toward, because they know that is a disconnect that teachers are missing, because there's like a parent app where you can log in and see, but like it needs to be where I can type something and they instantly receive
like
that.
a texting system.
Because then they would see the positives too. They would not just see the negative, because you don't give negative points. So they would be able to see like, hey, they just got 5 points because they went and helped someone clean up their spilled crayons without being asked. And that's one of the things we told them, like, that we would like to see change about their program. So hopefully they do, because I think that'll help us dramatically.
I think so too, because that's why I still have my dojo. That's the only reason I
Exactly.
still
And
have
if
my
it's
dojo.
tied with your phone, then that would help with your internet problem too, because they're more likely to have a phone that texts than
Exactly.
they are to just be getting on the internet.
I use Remind.
Remind
but
is
it
neat.
doesn't- It
Remind's
doesn't
neat.
have the point.
But even if it doesn't, though, you can still, and I find this hard to do on a consistent basis, is to text my parents, hey, so and so did a great job today with reading groups. They did everything they were supposed to do. They had a great opportunity today. You know, see you tomorrow. And with this point system being attached to PBIS, I have a feeling that the parents will see, oh, so so-and-so did really good today by helping someone else clean up, or they apologized, or they made an academic goal today. So it would be a conversation starter at home that could carry over into school. And I think that's a good starting point for this system that we've picked up. And I really hope that you're right, Tanisha, about
I hope so. They
that
seem
communication.
genuine about taking they weren't necessarily criticisms, but at the same time they were. They said that we weren't the only ones who had given them that feedback as well.
Good.
And that we told them that's one reason we'd be hesitant to neglect the other systems such as Dojo, because it's like you could instantly text a parent.
Right.
So they at least said they listened. So.
Hey, that's all I can ask.
Step
for them
one.
Just to listen. Just to listen. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
My question is, there are students even starting in the kindergarten level that you are never going to get the parental involvement. And I think we need to have things in place from all the way up that does give the child the responsibility and the acknowledgement of, and it doesn't matter how simple you make it, there are children that are not going to have
That parental
that
involvement.
other, and a lot of times we do not address
And that kills
those
me.
children at all.
What I would like to see, and this is something that maybe the leadership team can bring up this year, is kind of like a check and connect system with those kids that don't have that parent involvement. Maybe one of my kindergartners goes and sees Miss Bunch, or maybe they go see Miss Mortis or Miss Poole, or even you, Miss Haynes, to go check in with them in the morning. Hey, how was your day? Or at the end of the day, how was your day at school? Or if they're having a rough moment, they can come see that teacher, their check and connect person, and have that opportunity to take that 5-minute, I need to leave my classroom, I need just to reset my mind to come back. Not necessarily as a punishment or as a consequence to their behavior, but to just connect with that adult figure that they
What
may
do we
not
call
have.
that? We have it.
Wings.
Wings.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, 'cause
And it kind of got neglected, but we had good intentions when
Yeah.
we first.
I think a big part of it too is sometimes they just need to be out of the environment that they were so angry in. So giving them the opportunity to go check in with a different teacher when they're angry is going to help them, because on the walk down they can think about what happened. So when they get there, they're not going to waste time. They're going to say, okay, this is what happened. I was angry or upset because of this. What can you do to help me get back through it so I can get back to class? I mean, just removing yourself from that negative environment is going to help so much.
Right, and that also gives their teacher a moment to cool down too.
Yeah.
Because I know that we're very reactive people. I mean, it's just human nature, we're reactive. So to have that opportunity to just say, okay, I gotta cool down for a minute, you've gotta cool down for a minute, you go see your wings mentor, and I'm gonna stay here and have a brain break with my kids and calm down too. That will give everybody a chance to kind of reset and refocus their mind and maybe get back to where they were before that explosion happened. So, that being said, this data allowed me to review from the beginning of the year, where I just used the Dojo and the clip chart, to this new PBIS reward system, and how it was a good match for Dojo, but like we were just talking about, the communication wasn't there, so that's why I continued the Dojo. It was also beneficial to have staff input and to see what they believed worked with our next steps, because I thought that was really good, how we needed to talk about our communication, about how we need to amp up our wing program, because it was a good intention, it just never was followed completely through. And then if we have that communication with PBIS about them having that parent log, then we should be good to go. We are halfway through. You guys are doing awesome, and this is faster. This is our PLC focus question. I took a survey with my group, or with my PLC, which is my kindergarten team, and we had a question. And the question was, what strengths and challenges did the mid-year PLC survey reveal about kindergarten PLC group at Fairlawn? And the PLC members that partake was the 3 kindergarten teachers. One was a first-year teacher, one was a second-year teacher, and one was a third-year teacher. We were just kind of like tier steps. It was a 4-page survey that looked at our time management, our instruction, and what we felt like as an individual spent the most percentage of our time during our PLC doing, which was very interesting once I got all the results back and we sat down and talked about it. It was very relevant to our PLC group because when we sit down for PLC, we do talk about what we need to do, the collaboration, the standards, our lesson plans just as a whole. It gathered information about our time management and our instruction, and all 3 members completed the survey. This is what the survey looked like. They had to circle 1, which is very true, 2, which is true, 3, somewhat true, or 4, not true at all. That is the second part. And how I distributed it was I gave it to each one of my teammates. I said, here, please complete this. We'll talk about it when it's done. And they completed it on their own time, and they returned it to me promptly because my team was awesome like that. The first section discussed management and time management. The second section discussed teaching and learning tasks, and the third was the percentages of time spent. So that's how I broke it down into pie charts. And I just told you how we measured it. And these are the 3 sections I broke it down into: time management, instructional practices, and percentages that we spent on tasks. For time management, I averaged all 3 together. I said 43% of the most things we spent the most time on was collaboration. We looked at our standards, we looked at lesson plans, and this is what we are going to do, this is how we're going to do it. And the least amount of time we spent was our norms. We didn't really follow our norms because we just walked in and started doing what we needed to do. We never really reviewed our norms. 16% was agreed that we didn't review our norms, but we did say that our collaboration was very high with each other. The second part was our instruction base, and we said that we were really good at instructional practices. That was looking at our teaching, our assessments, our day-to-day routine of, do I need to reteach this? Do I need to move on from what I've been teaching? Do they got this? And the thing that we didn't achieve very good at was assessing our student work. None of us ever brought any of our student work to each other and said, what do you think this is? Or when we had our rubrics, our writing rubrics, what do you think this could be? What do you think this could be? We never assessed our student work. And we didn't really even realize that until we sat down and took this survey, which I thought was interesting. When it came down to the percentages, it was easier to break down our percentages by teacher. And I didn't say what teacher thought what because I didn't want to give away that, but I did think that it was very interesting that we all had very similar outcomes. This teacher 1 agreed that the majority of the time spent in our PLC was planning instruction and developing common assessments. And the least amount of thing that we spent on was discussing grade level business, which is like field trips and, hey, how was your day? We didn't really talk about that at all. We mostly just talked about getting the instruction done, getting the assessments done, and working from there. Teacher 2 said pretty much the same thing. Planning instruction was the most thing we spent our time on. The least thing we spent our time on is analyzing instructional practices, which is interesting because we decided in the second half of the survey that we were good at instructional practices. We just didn't review our student work. So I thought that was interesting that she also realized that analyzing instructional practices was something that we didn't spend a lot of time on. And lastly, the third teacher agreed that the majority of our time was spent on planning instruction and that the least amount of time was broken between two sections, which was analyzing student work and instructional practices, which again were the two things that we said that we weren't managing our time very well doing. So our areas of strength were planning instruction, developing common assessments, trusting our PLC group, collaborating, and creating learning goals and targets. We were really good at those. We were not so good, our weaknesses were discussing grade level business, analyzing instructional practices, analyzing student work, and setting our PLC norms. Yeah, we set them at the beginning of the year, but we never really stuck to them. So the next steps for our PLC group is to have norms and agendas. I think if our team leader has some norms set out that we all agree on at the beginning of the year, and then an agenda for the daily PLC, I think that we will be able to analyze our student work and our instructional practices a lot easier. Then at the end of the year, we all kind of scratch our heads and go, oh, we didn't do that again. So I want to make sure that we continue to progress instead of stay the same. When we meet with Carrie, which isn't daily, but it's at least once a week, we can email our minutes to Carrie and to make sure we're following that agenda. A way we can also keep responsible is to upload our lesson plans to Google Docs, which we already do, and make sure we have our data trackers. We upload those on a consistent basis as well, instead of, oh no, it's the end of the semester, I need to upload my data trackers. Guilty. So I need to make sure that I keep up with those on a consistent basis. So I know that my admin knows that we're working towards looking at our student goals, making sure that the assessments are where they need to be, and we're analyzing our student data more. And then we need to receive timely feedback from peers and admin observations. The more we get observed is great because it helps us improve our teaching. However, if we don't get that back in a timely manner, we tend to forget what we did that day or how we said something that day. And I just want to make sure that if they're timely with that feedback, it will help us continue to grow as teachers as well. So that is something that I think is very important to me for our next steps for a PLC group. Which was the slide that I should have. For a conclusion, the reflection, I think the mid-year PLC survey allowed for good analysis of positive strengths that we have and weaknesses that we had. And I think we were all very truthful in the survey because we didn't show, not everybody put, this is very important to me, or no, this is not very important to me. We all had different answers. And the next steps to be accomplished will be the norms, the agendas, and the analysis will happen on a more consistent basis. Thank you so much. Any questions?